My name's Liza. I'm 32, and I never thought a simple family dinner in our Irvine home would feel like walking straight into an ambush. As a marketing specialist, I'm trained to spot manipulation in ads and clients anywhere. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw after my grandmother passed away last month, and left me an inheritance big enough to turn my own family into strangers. Overnight. When I got that text from my dad, quick family dinner, important matters, my stomach dropped. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the air felt wrong, like everyone had rehearsed a script, and I was the only one without lines. We sat down to dinner, plates of lasagna steaming, but the fake smiles couldn't hide the tension. Then I saw my mom and sister huddled over papers on the side table, forging my signature to get into my trust fund. My heart was pounding, but I just smiled, pretending I hadn't seen a thing, and let them steer the conversation toward my so-called extra money. Little did they know, those accounts held exactly one and a red alert ready to go off the second they tried to touch it. And that was just the beginning. Before I tell you how I flipped the entire situation on them, drop where you're watching from in the comments and hit subscribe, because this story, it's about to get messy. From my earliest memories in our Irvine residence, my grandmother Pamela was more than just a relative. She was my guide through life's tougher lessons. Our weekend brunches at the local diner down the street from her place were like sacred rituals. While other kids chased cartoons on Saturday mornings, I'd be perched across from Grandma Pamela absorbing her stories of scraping by during hard economic times and the smart money habits that pulled her through. She had this knack for breaking down finances in ways a kid could grasp. Pamela would slice her pizza into sections, explaining, "This slice is for essentials like rent and food. This one's for building your future through savings, this for helping others, and that small bite, that's for treating yourself now without regret. Build security by thinking ahead, Veronica, not by grabbing everything in the moment." Those words embedded themselves deep. By age 12, I'd set up my own simple budgeting ledger, tracking every penny from chores around the neighborhood. Grandma Pamela watched with quiet approval as I grew more disciplined. At 16, I used earnings from babysitting gigs, watching kids in our Irvine cul-de-sac to open my first investment account. We'd review the statements together over coffee, her eyes lighting up as she posed questions that nudged me towards smart choices rather than dictating them. It felt empowering, like I was crafting my own path. In stark contrast, my sister Sabrina approached money like it was endless. 3 years older, she burned through her allowance on trendy clothes and gadgets before midweek, always with some excuse about needing to fit in at school. Our parents, my mother Cheryl and father Trevor, enabled it without pause. When Sabrina overspent, they'd slip her extra cash from their wallets, calling it a little boost. If she forgot to save for a field trip, or damaged a neighbor's fence during one of her reckless bike rides, they'd cover the cost outright. These weren't isolated incidents. They formed a pattern that defined our family dynamic. I recall saving diligently for months at 14 to buy a basic laptop for school projects. The day I planned to purchase it, Sabrina wrecked her skateboard into the Johnson's mailbox while showing off tricks. Instead of making her earn the repair money, Mom and Dad dipped into my savings jar, promising repayment soon. It never came. I picked up extra yard work in the Irvine heat to make up the difference, gritting my teeth through the frustration. This imbalance carried into every corner of our childhood. Sabrina's impulsive decisions got cushioned while mine demanded self-reliance. Oh, our parents justified it as helping where needed, but it stung. Grandma Pamela noticed the cracks early. During our private talks at the diner, she'd say, "Family matters, Veronica, but never let it erode your foundation. Set those boundaries kindly but firmly." She became my refuge, the one voice affirming that my careful approach wasn't stinginess, it was strength. Those early years in Irvine shaped everything. While Sabrina chased fleeting thrills, I built habits that promised stability. Grandma Pamela's wisdom lingered, a quiet counter to the favoritism at home. Little did I know how vital those lessons would prove when the stakes rose higher. As we grew into teens in the mid-200s in Irvine, the favoritism in our family sharpened into something impossible to ignore. My parents' uneven treatment became a constant undercurrent, favoring Sabrina's whims while forcing me to navigate obstacles alone. It wasn't just about money anymore. It seeped into opportunities, expectations, and how we were seen in our own home. Sabrina's recklessness escalated without consequences. She crashed her bike into a parked car during a daredevil stunt in our neighborhood park, shattering the side mirror and denting the door, rather than insisting she take responsibility, maybe mow lawns or deliver papers. Mom and Dad pulled funds from the college savings account I'd built through after-school gigs. They claimed it was a family issue, but the repayment they promised fizzled out. I ended up logging extra hours at the local coffee shop steaming lattes until my hands blistered just to rebuild what they'd taken. This pattern repeated in bigger ways. When high school ended, Sabrina headed to an upscale private university in Northern California, her tuition fully covered by our parents despite her spotty grades. She partied through semesters, failing courses and switching majors on a whim. Yet they bailed her out each time, rewriting checks for retakes or summer classes. Meanwhile, I pieced together my education at a state school nearby, relying on a partial scholarship and relentless part-time work. I balanced classes with shifts at retail stores and Irvine malls, squeezing study sessions into late nights to maintain my GPA. As adulthood loomed, I methodically constructed my career in marketing. Starting with an internship at a small Irvine agency during college, I absorbed every detail, crafting campaigns, analyzing trends, networking at local events. After graduation, I landed an entry-level role at a mid-sized firm, grinding through long hours to prove myself. Promotions came slowly but steadily, from coordinator to specialist, handling client pitches and digital strategies that boosted my portfolio. By my mid-20s, I'd secured a stable position with enough income for a modest condo in Irvine's quieter districts, plus a solid emergency fund. Sabrina's path couldn't have been more different. She bounced between jobs like they were temporary hobbies, starting strong in sales or event planning, only to quit after months blaming overbearing managers or stifling environments. One gig at a boutique agency ended when she missed deadlines chasing social events. Another in retail collapsed over attendance issues. Each failure prompted our parents to step in, offering loans or connections to get her back on track. They'd host family dinners where they'd rave about her latest innovative idea, like launching a fashion blog or app, even as I knew from whispers among friends that these ventures fizzled fast. I kept the peace by visiting every few weeks, driving across Irvine's sunny boulevards to our family residence. Sitting through those meals, I'd nod along as Mom gushed over Sabrina's potential or Dad shared updates on her breakthroughs. Inside, resentment simmered. I'd offer resume tips or budget advice only for it to be dismissed. But I bit my tongue, maintaining the fragile ties. Grandma Pamela's earlier words echoed faintly, reminding me to hold my ground without exploding the dynamic just yet. This divide defined our transition to independence. Sabrina floated on cushions of support while I forged ahead, through sheer determination. The imbalance wasn't subtle anymore. It was the foundation of every interaction, setting the stage for conflicts I couldn't yet foresee. Last year, when Pamela was diagnosed in her apartment near Irvine, the news hit like a freight train. Stage 4 cancer. The words from the doctor blurred everything else. I felt the world tilt, waves of devastation crashing over me as I processed what it meant. Pamela had always been the steady force in my life, and now she faced months of treatments that promised pain more than hope. I immediately requested leave from my marketing job, rearranging client meetings and deadlines to prioritize her. Days turned into a routine of hospital drives along Irvine's palm streets, sitting through chemo sessions where I'd hold her hand, fetch water, or read from her favorite mystery novels to distract from the nausea. Those 6 months were exhausting, endless appointments at the medical center, coordinating with nurses for pain management and handling her daily needs. Back at the apartment, I'd stay late into the night fielding calls from work while she rested, ensuring she had comfort items like soft blankets or her preferred herbal tea. Pamela remained sharp despite the fatigue, cracking jokes about hospital food or sharing forgotten family anecdotes to keep spirits up. I treasured those moments, knowing time was slipping away. Sabrina's involvement stood in sharp relief. She visited only twice during the entire ordeal, brief stops that felt more obligatory than genuine. The first time she breezed in with takeout from a trendy Irvine spot, chatting superficially about her day before steering the conversation to her latest scheme, a subscription box service for beauty products. She casually asked Pamela for seed money, framing it as a sure-thing investment. Pamela politely declined, her eyes flicking to me with a knowing glance. The second visit followed a similar script, small talk, laced with hints about needing funds to expand her network. Sabrina left early, both times citing work commitments that I suspected were excuses. As Pamela's condition worsened, she pulled me aside, one quiet afternoon in her apartment, her voice steady despite the oxygen tube. "Veronica, we need to handle something private," she said, directing me to contact her attorney, Mr. Sutton. I dialed his number from her phone, putting it on speaker as she dozed nearby. Mr. Sutton, warm yet professional, greeted us and confirmed he'd been expecting the call. With Pamela awake and alert, she instructed changes to her estate plans, emphasizing secrecy. We worked swiftly over the following weeks. Mr. Sutton drafted an irrevocable trust, naming me as the sole beneficiary. To ensure everything went smoothly, Pamela involved my Aunt Cheryl, her sister, who witnessed the documents and helped verify her sound mind through medical affidavit. Aunt Cheryl, always the practical one in family matters, coordinated notary visits to the apartment and reviewed the terms with us. The trust transferred all major assets, her savings accounts, investment portfolios, and even the apartment deed out of her direct estate before probate could touch them. Pamela explained her reasoning during a lucid evening as we sat by her window overlooking Irvine's evening lights. "I love your mother and father, but they've enabled Sabrina for 2 long loans for her failed ideas, excuses for her choices. It's my fault for not intervening sooner when they were raising you girls. This trust protects what I've built from being drained away. The provisions were ironclad funds earmarked for my housing education if needed and future stability, with explicit clauses barring any distributions to family members without Mr. Sutton's co-rust. Approval." Aunt Cheryl nodded in agreement, sharing stories of past times she'd seen the enabling firsthand. Guilt tugged at me initially, keeping this from Cheryl, and Trevor felt deceptive, but Pamela's stories of their repeated requests for bailouts over the years reinforced the necessity. As her health declined, finalizing the trust brought her peace. "Now I can rest without worry," she whispered one night. The secrecy held, shielding her legacy from the patterns that had long skewed our family. 3 weeks after the funeral back in Irvine, a text from my father Trevor lit up my phone. "Family dinner at the residence Friday 6 p.m. Important financial discussion." The formality struck me as odd. Our gatherings were usually spontaneous barbecues or holiday chaos, not scheduled talks. Still grieving Pamela's loss, I felt a knot form in my stomach, suspecting this wasn't just about settling her affairs. The drive to our family residence that evening gave me time to replay the message. Irvine's familiar boulevards lined with manicured lawns and upscale shops did little to ease the unease. Pulling into the driveway, I spotted Sabrina's gleaming luxury SUV parked crookedly, its polished chrome rims and custom plates screaming expense for someone always claiming tight finances. My practical sedan looked modest beside it, a visual echo of our lifelong differences. Mom opened the door with an overly bright smile, her embrace lingering a second too long. "Darling, you're here, come. Dinner's almost ready." The scent of her signature lasagna wafted through a dish she reserved for softening blows or extracting favors. Dad greeted me with a stiff nod instead of his usual pat on the back, his tone clipped. "Good to see you, Veronica." Sabrina's already in the living room, the atmosphere hummed with unspoken agendas, the air thick, enough to slice. We settled into small talk around the coffee table, weather updates, neighborhood news, but it felt forced. Sabrina lounged on the couch, scrolling her phone, barely glancing up. "Hey sis," she mumbled, her wrist flashing a designer watch that I mentally priced at several thousand. For all her complaints about job instability, she never lacked for high-end accessories. Mom bustled with appetizers, her hands fidgety as she arranged a platter of artisanal cheeses we'd never seen at casual meals. Dad checked his watch repeatedly, avoiding eye contact, helping Mom carry drinks from the kitchen. I caught sight of a stack of papers on the dining table, legal forms with trust fund headers visible. Before she could shuffle a napkin over them, I glimpsed my name in forged script, the signature a clumsy imitation of mine. My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression neutral, piecing together their intent to redirect Pamela's assets without my knowledge. Excusing myself to the bathroom for a moment, I detuttered quietly to Dad's home office, down the hall. The door stood ajar, of voices murmuring from the living room. On his desk lay a folder labeled Sabrina's Finances in his neat handwriting. Flipping it open, my suspicions solidified. Records of past, bailouts exceeding $100,000 over 5 years, all unpaid. Screenshots from Sabrina's social media showed extravagant trips to Hawaii and Europe timed with her business slumps. Most revealing was an email from her ex-boyfriend Scott dated months earlier, alerting my parents to her chronic overspending on luxury items and urging intervention. They'd dismissed it entirely. I snapped quick photos with my phone, capturing every damning page, then slipped the folder back as footsteps approached. Mom appeared in the doorway, her brow furrowed. "What are you doing here?" I feigned nostalgia, pointing to old photos on the shelf. "Just reminiscing about Pamela, her." Tension eased slightly, and she guided me back without pressing further. "In my old bedroom now, a guest space," I whispered. A call to my best friend Jenna, who'd known our family RKS since college. "You won't believe this," I hissed, outlining the forged documents and folder revelations. Jenna's outrage mirrored my own. "They're plotting to hijack your inheritance for Sabrina's messes after all the favoritism you've endured." She validated my next steps, bolstering my resolve. Next, I dialed Aunt Cheryl discreetly. As Pamela's sister and trust witness, she grasped the gravity immediately. "Stick to the plan we discussed," she advised softly. "Gather what you can, Mr. Sutton, and I will back you." Her support felt like armor, confirming I wasn't overreacting. With evidence secured, I composed myself and returned to the lion's den, ready for whatever unfolded next. Sitting at the table that evening in Irvine, the lasagna grew cold as the conversation shifted gears. Dad cleared his throat, folding his napkin precisely. "We've been thinking about Pamela's estate," he began, his voice adopting a boardroom formality. Mom nodded along her eyes, darting, "Between us. Your sister's in a tight spot financially, and since you're stable, it makes sense to redirect some of that inheritance her way." The words landed like a slap. They weren't asking. They were declaring my funds as the solution to Sabrina's problems. I kept my composure honed from client negotiations and probed gently. "What kind of spot business ventures gone south?" Sabrina shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. Mom jumped in. "The market's tough for creative types like her. She needs a reset." I leaned forward, voice steady. "Let's talk specifics. How much are we discussing?" Dad didn't hesitate. "Around $250,000. It'll clear her debts and give her a fresh start." The numbers stunned me. Likely the bulk of what Pamela had safeguarded, but I played along, gathering intel, and these debts from what failed projects. Sabrina sighed, dramatically. "Some investments didn't pan out. Creditors are pressing." I pressed, further mentioning snippets from Dustin without naming him outright. "I heard through family that your last online store was thriving before it shut down." What changed? Mom and Dad exchanged glances while Sabrina toyed with her fork. "Complications arose," Dad said, vaguely. Not satisfied, I delved deeper. Complications like a luxury condo down payment, that high-end car in the driveway, or those vacations to exotic spots. Because from what I've gathered, this isn't just business, it's lifestyle overspending. Sabrina's face flushed. "Who told you that, Scott? That bitter ex doesn't know anything." Her slip confirmed the email's validity, but I held back, letting them unravel. As tension peaked, Dad stared back. "The point is, family supports each other. You're doing well, condo, steady job. Sabrina needs this more." The entitlement boiled my blood, but I revealed my hand calmly. "You mean by forging my signature on those trust documents I saw earlier, redirecting funds without asking?" The room froze. Mom's fork clattered. "What are you talking about?" I met her eyes. "The papers on the dining table. My name but not my writing. That's fraud." Sabrina snapped. "You're paranoid. We were just exploring options." Dad tried smoothing. "Grandma left while I struggle." Mom teared up. "How could you do this to us?" Dad accused. "Pamela always favored you. Now you're twisting her wishes." Their insults flew, labeling me ungrateful, heartless, but with photos of their bailout records and Scott's email as backup, I countered. Each denial. "This isn't favoritism, it's protection from your enabling." Dustin mentioned your patterns too. The accusations peaked, but I refused to yield evidence, shielding me like armor. Their plan crumbled under the weight of exposure. The red alert, a silent testament to Pamela's foresight. In that Charged moment, the family facade shattered irreparably. In the months following that dinner in Irvine, the fallout unfolded with brutal efficiency. My parents and Sabrina wasted no time, mounting a legal challenge, filing a lawsuit to contest the trust's validity. They hired a probate attorney from a downtown firm, arguing undue influence and claiming Pamela's decisions stemmed from diminished capacity. Mr. Sutton, as co-trustee, mounted a robust defense, presenting ironclad documentation, medical records affirming her mental clarity, witness statements from Aunt Cheryl during the signing, and timestamps showing assets transferred well before her decline. Under California law, where irrevocable trusts bypass probate if established properly, the court dismissed their claims swiftly. The judge ruled the structure unassailable, no loopholes for redistribution. Costs piled up for them in legal fees, but for me it was vindication of Pamela's foresight. With the suit crumbling, their financial house of cards toppled next, Sabrina's debts racked up through unchecked spending on high-rent condos, leased sports cars, and lavish getaways had long been co-signed by Mom and Dad. When creditors intensified collections, the weight proved crushing. They filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, the liquidation route common in California for overwhelming unsecured obligations. Assets liquidated included their prized Irvine residence sold at auction to satisfy liens. The process stripped them of equity built over decades, forcing a downgrade to a cramped rental in a less desirable suburb. Credit scores plummeted into the abyss. Dad's once solid rating now barred him from basic loans, while Mom's attempts at refinancing personal cards failed repeatedly. Sabrina's luxury vehicle got repossessed mid-process, her watch and designer bags pawned to scrape by. The bankruptcy discharge came after rigorous trustee scrutiny, but the stigma lingered, blocking job prospects and straining their daily existence. Social isolation hit hardest, rippling through our extended network. Relatives who'd long observed the imbalances began distancing themselves. Dustin, our cousin from the Bay Area, reached out to me first, sharing how he'd loaned Sabrina money years back without repayment. "I'm done enabling," he confided during a call, aligning firmly with my stance. After hearing the full account, Aunt Cheryl, already privy as trust witness, became vocal at family gatherings. She still attended, recounting Pamela's explicit wishes and condemning the forgery attempt. Word spread through emails and hushed phone trees, painting my parents and Sabrina as opportunists. Invitations to holidays dwindled. Old friends from Irvine's community groups offered sympathies to me privately, but avoided them. Sabrina's social circle shrank as former colleagues learned of her patterns via mutual contacts like Scott, who quietly confirmed the overspending tales. The family unit, once a facade of unity, fractured publicly, leaving them shunned in circles they'd once dominated. Through it all, I enforced total separation. Their initial barrage of guilt-laced texts, "Your sister's devastated. Dad's health is suffering from the stress," went unanswered, each one blocked after a quick read. Calls from unfamiliar numbers, likely burners to bypass filters, rang straight to voicemail, deleted eared. No olive branch extended from my side. Attempts at reconciliation, like Mom's tearful message begging for family healing, met silence. I changed my number entirely, after persistent voicemails routing communications through Mr. Sutton for any lingering estate matters. Therapy sessions helped steel my resolve, reinforcing that no contact protected my peace. Ignoring their pleas wasn't cruelty, it was self-preservation, breaking the cycle that had enabled toxicity for too long. As their world contracted, mine expanded, free from the weight, a deliberate choice with no room for reversal. A year later, settled in my own life in Irvine, I channeled the inheritance into something meaningful, the Pamela Financial Literacy Foundation. Drawing from a portion of the trust funds, I established this nonprofit to honor her teachings, focusing on programs for young adults navigating money and relationships. We developed curricula blending practical tools like budgeting apps and investment basics with modules on spotting manipulation such as emotional guilt trips or unequal family dynamics. Workshops in local Irvine community centers drew participants eager to learn how to assert financial autonomy without isolation. Each session featured real-world scenarios, role-playing, boundary setting. During inheritance talks, or analyzing red flags in shared expenses, volunteers From marketing backgrounds, helped design interactive online courses, reaching thousands via free webinars. Seeing a college student email about avoiding a toxic loan from relatives made it worthwhile. Pamela's legacy lived on, empowering others where our family had failed. Therapy became my anchor through the transition. Weekly sessions with Dr. Sutton unpacked the estrangement's layers, helping me process the grief, not just for Pamela but for the family ties I'd severed. He guided me to recognize ingrained patterns, the enabling that started in childhood, the resentment I'd suppressed, and how silence had perpetuated imbalance. Techniques like journaling mapped out triggers guilt from ignored messages or doubt during quiet evenings. Over time, I reframed the fallout as necessary growth, shedding the weight of obligation. Dr. Sutton's insights affirmed that cutting contact wasn't failure, but a step toward health, equipping me to build forward without looking back. My chosen family filled the void organically. Jenna, steadfast since our college days, became more than a friend. She cleared weekends for walks along Irvine's trails, listening as I vented, lingering anger. Her validation echoed Pamela's wisdom, reminding me that support thrives on equality. Aunt Cheryl stepped up too, hosting quiet dinners, where we'd share laughs over old photos. Her presence a bridge to positive roots without the old toxicity. No blood obligation defined these bonds. They grew from mutual care, like when she connected me to foundation donors, or Jenna brainstormed curriculum ideas late into the night. This network helped navigate grief's quieter waves, sudden memories in grocery aisles, or empty holidays, turning solitude into strength. The experiences distilled into core lessons I carried daily. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential for preserving well-being amid pressures that demand sacrifice. My self-worth stems from integrity, not from yielding to others' demands or measuring value by what I provide. Financial independence protects peace, creating a buffer against exploitation and fostering true security in family. It's defined by mutual respect, not shared DNA connections that uplift rather than drain. Pamela's final gift wasn't just assets, it was the clarity to choose relationships wisely. To anyone facing similar strains, know that prioritizing yourself breaks cycles, paving paths to authentic fulfillment.